Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of DownNotableContent. We are SJ.
And Alex Herschel. Today, we are going to talk about From Software games.
Let's get right into it. All right, I don't want to beat around the bush. We have some big announcements before we get into the main topic, so let's talk about that. Should I just start?
Yeah.
So, as you know, Alex is moving out of state. So he will no longer be able to record in person.
It's true.
And this is our last in-person recording session for the foreseeable future, which is kind of surreal. We've been doing this for a long time now.
We are almost at 4 years. We started the podcast in September of 2023. And have done mostly in-person episodes.
Mm-hmm.
And not to scare any of you, we're not stopping. That's not what we're saying. But it's definitely gonna switch things up a bit for sure.
Yeah, things are gonna change. So I have a baby on the way, and Alex is moving out of state, and so our lives are going to look quite different by the end of the year. And we wanted to specifically address the Patreon supporters in the Patreon episodes.
Right. We feel like we've tried very hard to give good value for the support that has been given to us in that way. And so we've talked about this a little bit, and we've kind of come to some decisions on how we want to handle that so that our Patreon supporters know how much we value them, and also that we respect what you've given to us. And by making these changes, that respect and that relationship will kind of continue. It is just going to look pretty different.
So what's going to happen is our existing Patreon supporters, or if you were to sign up newly, paid Patreon will only be available through the end of July. So if you're late on episodes or you want to hop in and check it out, now's the time to do it. And the main reason why we are stopping or eliminating our paid support through Patreon is because we don't want to continue to get paid if we're not able to meet, the expectations that we have for ourselves in terms of delivering actual, good content on a consistent basis. So, and because there are so many unknowns, we just said, you know what, let's just stop taking people's money and move forward from there. So what's going to happen is you have until the end of July to watch anything you might want to watch on there. After that, paid access will be halted, and we're not going to necessarily make all of the episodes free to everybody immediately, because those Patreon episodes were essentially created for the people that have contributed to this podcast, and we really value that. So for the most part, the Patreon episodes will no longer be accessible, but every now and then we will start posting the Patreon episodes for free on all podcast platforms as usual. The same way that you get our regular episodes delivered to you, you will start to see Patreon episodes trickling in, starting from the oldest Patreon episode and going in chronological order. So it'll take a long time for all of the Patreon episodes to become free and available to everybody. But they will eventually become free. And that was kind of our compromise of, okay, we want to stop taking money from people, but we also want to, how do we value best the support that we've been given thus far? And that was a good way to do it, because we're going to have certain times when we're just so busy that maybe we're not able to record an episode or something. And in that case, one of our older Patreon episodes, in lieu of a regular episode, we would post that up kind of as a piece of history and to make that available to everyone else.
And we feel like the delayed release, by going back to the first Patreon episode from years ago at this point, was a good way to show that the people who did support us, right, like you had access to that, you've had the chance to view and experience that. And with how much time has passed, it doesn't feel to us like we're disrespecting you or your contribution by then making that free. Similar to how, movies go on to regular TV after, a bit of time and is more accessible in that way. We're just kind of viewing it that way. If any of you do have concerns about that, y'all know us, please reach out to us, let us know. But yeah, I think that's generally where we're at. And we hope that makes sense and that you guys also feel comfortable with that.
We can make accommodations if needed, right? Like Alex said, please reach out if you have any concerns, or if you're like, oh, you know what? I know I'm not going to be able to listen to or watch these episodes by the end of July, but I really want access to them or something. Just let us know. We can work something out if if you're one of the Patreon supporters that have already been in there, because you guys have been supporting us for a very long time. So
yeah, absolutely.
So there's that. And our regular episodes will continue to be ongoing. We're going to shoot for at least one a month. We'll kind of see where things are, but with the Patreon payments halted, that'll give us a little more breathing room to, take breaks when needed or whatever, but we will still be regularly uploading. They're just not going to be in person anymore.
Mm-hmm. And maybe slightly less frequently, but
yeah.
And that also kind of comes back to, like, we don't know what it's going to look like as far as, are we going to be able to experience things outside of the podcast in a way that then enables us to make good podcast content? Because if you're a gaming podcast and you're not playing games, what are you really doing, right? So we think that the new schedule will be feasible. It'll be doable. It'll allow us to continue to create quality over quantity when it comes to our content. So I think it'll be all right. I think it's going to work out just fine.
I think so too. Yeah. So there's that. And we do still have a few other things before we get into the main topic. So we have an audience question in the Discord, but before that, I want to get to this. So I just always really appreciate it when we get comments and feedback from our listeners on episodes through emails or whatever. And Jay Maurer said, this is regarding our Patreon episode 32, Bad Trends in Video Games. And he said, interesting take on the Souls-like games, Alex. I'm playing Mina the Hollow right now, and it has some Souls-like mechanics. However, I think it's more like Hollow Knight, where you feel like it is your skill, which is the reason that you died, not a cheap trick. I'm loving it so far. The bosses are awesome. Any thoughts on that or context you want to provide for that?
No, I think it's interesting that this is coming up on this day. In this Patreon episode, not to give too much away, I talked about how I think people that try to make Souls-like games that aren't from software, more often than not, fail to do it properly. And
I think you're saying like difficulty does not equal good, right?
Right. And the way that these games create that difficulty didn't feel as fair, which Jay Maurer brought up here, and feeling that in this particular game, that it was his skill, which is what it should be, right? Like, you should feel like you failed because of you, not because of other things working outside of your control. And we're gonna talk about that a little bit, because I've got 2 Soul games under my belt now, and another one in progress. So I think I've got some more to say.
By the way, I've just heard so many good things about Mina the Hollower from so many different people.
I had never heard of this game until this comment.
Really?
Yeah, never.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I just have, in my circle of people, I've just heard from like, I don't know, 2-3 different people like recommending it to me. Like I know it's not really my kind of game. I'm not really interested, but anyway, seems like a really good game. Okay, the question that we had from the Discord,
it comes from, I think, from
Zaruma.
Yeah, Zaruma.
What games have your favorite soundtracks? I've got that locked and loaded.
You go ahead, because
in no particular order, because this is just difficult and it depends on the day and how I'm feeling or whatever. Ocarina of Time.
Knew it.
Expedition 33. Nier Automata. Kingdom Hearts.
That's an incredibly solid list.
How about you?
Expedition 33. It's not recency bias. I finished that game almost 6 months ago. Still listen to the soundtrack a couple times a week. So good. The Wind Waker soundtrack. There's a lot of Zelda games that could be on there, but Wind Waker mostly. I did want to put Kingdom Hearts on there, but I think for me, the problem with Kingdom Hearts is there's like 5 or 6 songs that really stand out. And then there's a lot of like overworld songs where I'm like, okay, this is like not nearly as good. And it's not fair to those other songs because they're not bad. It's just when you have stuff like Dearly Beloved and Simple and Clean, like those are just so peak that it does make the others seem a little bit less to me, which is unfair to them. Also Traverse Town. Anyway, Traverse Town. Before I get too into it. The other ones I wanted to put on there was Grease. I listened to that soundtrack an insane amount. And Eastward. I love the Eastward soundtrack. It is just so quaint, so fun.
I remember when you talked about Eastward, like every episode.
Every
like
single episode.
Straight,
it was the running gag. Gotta mention Eastward.
Okay, and then we had like a follow-up question to that, right?
We did.
So this is interesting. Zach asked, what games do you feel are better without any music? Now, I don't want to put Zach on blast. I understand where he's coming from. I understand what he's appreciating. Okay, so when he first expressed his interest to me, or you know how he sometimes likes video games with no music, he told me that it's just immersion. Like so much immersion. Sure. So he told me that when he was doing his very first playthrough of Skyrim, he turned off all of the music and he was absolutely loving it. And from someone who has never played the game before, I can totally see how that would be really cool and immersive. Sure. And I think, you know, maybe in like VR in particular, that might be kind of a cool experience. Mm-hmm. But that was such a the Skyrim soundtrack is like beloved by everybody, and it's so good.
Everybody, like as someone who played Skyrim a little bit ago, didn't love it. The soundtrack is still phenomenal. Like I think that soundtrack specifically, just it stands apart on its own as its own product.
It really does.
But then when you take into account the gameplay experience as well, I mean, like Streets of Whiterun,
I don't know.
So good.
I mean, so I think Zach is going to catch some heat for you know, suggesting that Skyrim without soundtrack is really good. But I understand his point and what he's saying and what he's appreciating about no sound.
Yeah.
Or no music rather. But I personally can't think of any game that I would actually prefer without music. And like the specific reasons are like, you know, we'll just use Skyrim as an example. When I encounter an enemy, you know, that music that starts playing, it creates a sense of urgency, a little bit of anxiety, you know, it gets you into the mood to battle and that something intense is happening. Or when you enter this, you know, beautiful looking grove or whatever, and then you have some music that plays over that. It's just, it allows the developer to portray thoughts and emotions that you can't really relay through any other medium other than music, in my opinion. I think there are just things that you have to have music in order to do well. So for me personally, the way that I like to play video games, I would never turn off music in anything.
Yeah, I think I agree. Like I can think of maybe like 2 or 3 portions of a game where I didn't like the song, so I just like played it with the sound off entirely. but it's such a rare case for me that I can't think of any. I do feel like there are certain genres that are better built for that, right? Like horror games, tend to have kind of minimal scores, and removing that entirely might add to the sense of tension that you might be feeling. I just don't really play horror games. So yeah, like from my experiences, music always adds. So I really can't think of any game that I would think would be better without music.
One thing that he said, for me, I actually prefer playing Sekiro without any music. To me, it made the game 100 times more immersive and tense. The music doesn't sound bad, but the atmosphere of the game, when coupled with no music, makes it orders of magnitude more atmospheric and tense, even the boss fights. So I think, to his credit, I do think that when you turn off the music, the sound effects and environmental effects, you hear, those are a lot more pronounced. Definitely. So I think that is what's contributing to this immersion that Zach is talking about. And, I think if that is your cup of tea, I can completely see how that would be wonderful. And I've never played Sekiro, so I can't say anything on that.
And to his credit as well, I feel like a lot of games, or a lot more modern games nowadays, for certain bosses, like that's a certain boss fight will be the only portion of the game where they don't have music, and so it does just become that environmental design, and that is really impactful in the moment.
It emphasizes that, right? Yeah,
right. And again, like for me, in my experience, I feel like it's just because that's a rare event in most games, that's where the impact comes from, is like, oh, this doesn't have music, like I gotta take this seriously. And I think an entire game with that would kind of dilute the effects for me personally. But it is interesting. I mean, I wonder if any games that I know that I've played a ton of, if like it would be an interesting experiment to then play another playthrough without music, just to see like how it impacts it, and see if it would be worth experimenting with more in the future.
Yeah, I would be curious if anybody else has done this. So let us know if you've turned off the music and loved it or something like that. I will say, actually, in Expedition 33, I didn't turn off the music, but I turned down the music by about 33%. So I could still hear the music great, but it just allowed me to hear the sound effects and the sound cues for parrying just a little bit better. But I would never turn it off, especially in that game.
33%.
Because Expedition 33.
Okay. Good stuff.
Okay. I think we are all caught up.
Okay.
Should we get into the main topic?
Let's do it. While you're getting your stuff ready.
I'm ready.
I, on the last episode, mentioned that I started playing Bloodborne and was having a great time with it. I finished Bloodborne. I 100%ed it outside of the DLC. I didn't buy the DLC. Mentioned that already. But I did everything else. Fought every other boss fight. Visited every area. I guess not 100% because I didn't like upgrade every single weapon because that would have taken an insane amount of time. But I did everything. Had a great time. Turned around. Played Demon Souls. Have now beat that. Beat every boss. Every level on that. And am now currently playing through Dark Souls. I'm a couple areas in. For those of you that have played it, have rung the first bell, have done everything that I can in the deep forest, except for the stuff that's blocked by the crest. I got the crest, opened it up, went in, and got absolutely smoked, and was like, okay, like this is something that I'm not supposed to be here yet. Back out of that, and have explored another optional area. I'm going to be doing the depths, and then the plan is then to go pursue the second tower in Blight Town. So not very far into it yet, still in kind of that introductory area, but feel well enough to also say that I'm enjoying that experience as well. And I'm excited to talk about my first two From Software games and answer some questions and just kind of chat.
So this is going to be first ever in terms of game reviews, because Alex is basically going to be reviewing and comparing the two games at the same time. Because at first I was like, well, do you want to just focus on one game and we can just do like a dedicated review episode on that? And he's like, well, I actually kind of want to talk about both and how they contrast and, differ from one another. So I thought that would be pretty interesting. So I've got some questions and things ready here to help this dialogue, but if you want to add anything in the middle or you want to talk about a specific topic, feel free to go for it. So I have never played any Souls games. I don't have like the most context that I have for Souls games is like gameplay of Elden Ring that I've seen online. So to someone, and I think you were in similar shoes, right? Like when you were first picking up these Souls games. So like, what were your first impressions as you know, picked up your first Souls-like and Souls game, and how was that transition to getting used to that gameplay?
Yeah. You know, the features of a Souls game to me so far were known to me before, where you know, you have the corpse running system where as you beat enemies, you get souls, or in Bloodborne's case, like blood echoes, and that's like your currency that you use for everything. You use it to upgrade weapons on top of upgrade materials. You use it to buy items like arrows for your bow. You use it to level up, and when you level up, you get to upgrade one stat by 1 point per time, and the more that levels go on, the more souls are required to upgrade. And as you accumulate those, if you die, you leave all of those in the spot where you died, and then on your next attempt, you have to make it all the way to where you were and recover them. But if you die before you get them, all those souls that you've accumulated have lost. I knew that was a thing going into it, but it did not help to prepare me for like the pain of, because like checkpoints are pretty spread out in this game, right? Like you go a decent stretch without anything, and these enemies, man, they kick the living garbage out of you.
Even just like normal enemies.
100%, especially at the beginning. Like the way that they're designed is like, as you go through different areas, like each enemy is able to kill you in like 2 or 3 hits. So if you come across a group of enemies, they're not just gonna like sit there and wait for you to recover. Like one's gonna attack you. You're going to be dealing with the damage animation from that. And the second that you're out, the next bro's attack is going to be coming in. It's like, if you get into a hairy spot, like it's just over. Like just give up, be prepared to run back and try to get those back. The transition for me, I think, was really, really rough. The first area of Bloodborne took me a long time to get through. I'm talking like 7 hours to get ready to cruise through. And in all honesty, like I'm trying to count the amount of enemies. I think you only go through maybe 20 enemies before hitting that first boss. So like, it's not like there's a lot. I just died over and over and over, and it never stops. So it took a really long time to get used to. However, after that first boss, things got so much smoother. So I think it really is kind of just a matter of perseverance, and you get through that first section. That first section always does a really good job of teaching you how each game individually works, and then you're just kind of able to progress, and you know what you're getting yourself into moving forward, and you just kind of
is that more because, like you said, you're getting used to the game's expectations, or is it also a factor of, well, after you get through that first area, you have more available resources you can collect to make yourself stronger?
Yeah, I think it's both. I think it's definitely getting used to it, because these enemy attack patterns, and the fact that your attacks are so animation heavy, so it's not snappy, right? Like if you want to do 3 attacks, it's going to take 5 seconds, depending on what weapon you're using. Like it's not a fast paced thing. Even Bloodborne, which is the fastest paced of the Souls games, like attacks just take a long time to hit. So it's a matter of like slowing your brain down on that front, but then becoming more hyper aware of just timing your dodges, making sure that you're managing your stamina bar correctly. So yeah, I think it's both. I think it's that you get that level up from beating that boss, and you get this plethora of souls that you can just immediately go ahead and turn in. And that the game just does a good job of kind of preparing you for what's coming afterwards.
Okay, cool. So I think you mentioned the system of, if you die, you have to go and is it kill the enemy that killed you, or you just have to go to that spot and collect your...
Depends. So the souls drop in a spot.
Okay.
In Demon Souls case, you just have to get to that spot and you pick them up.
Like the Jedi series.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But in Bloodborne, it drops on the spot, but then if an enemy walks through that spot, they absorb all those souls, and then you have to not just hit that enemy, you have to kill that enemy in order to get the souls back.
So if it's a boss, that can be brutal.
Uh-huh.
Dang. Are there any other similarities that you noticed to the Jedi series? Because I've heard many times that, the Jedi games takes a lot of inspiration from the Souls games.
As I've started Dark Souls, I've definitely seen more. Because in Dark Souls, the healing works the same way as it does in Jedi Survivor with your stim kits, right? Where you have a certain amount of charges every time you rest, it refills up, and you can upgrade that to get more throughout the game. In Bloodborne and Demon Souls, it's not the case. Healing items are a finite consumable that you get by defeating certain enemies in certain areas. So you can hold more of them, but once you use them, they're gone. And so if you get to a point and you have one they call them blood vials in Bloodborne. You have one blood vial left, you die, you start the next run, you don't go back up to 10 blood vials, you have one left. And if you want more, you have to go to certain areas where they're going to be dropped, kill enemies until you get enough to feel comfortable to keep going.
That sounds brutal.
It's insanely punishing. Like, there were multiple times where I literally just had to stop, go back to this first area, because the first area has a ton of enemies where they drop them, and just farm until I had 60, because you can hold up to 20 until you die, and then any left are stored, and then it just automatically refills up to 20 once you die if you have them.
Okay.
So I would just go and grind for 20 minutes, resetting the level and getting those enemies to pop back up and collect them up before I made another real attempt at where I was actually going. Insanely punishing.
Dang,
but
man.
So satisfying to conquer, man.
Dang, man. Okay. Switching gears a little bit, what kind of stories are told in these games?
Oh, man. Story is super, super minimal. Souls games are known for their flavor text, where a lot of the game's lore is given through item descriptions, where your weapons are fabled weapons of heroes. So it'll show you the stats, but then the little blurb will be once wielded by knight blank and blank, who did this, this, and this, was revered and has passed into legend, something like that. But the stories are surprisingly... Well, Bloodborne's was emotionally resonant for me. Demon Souls, if you can't tell by now, I liked Bloodborne a lot more than I liked Demon Souls. I had a great time with Demon Souls, but Bloodborne was just better to me in pretty much every way. And that makes sense. Bloodborne came 3 games after Demon Souls, so there's a lot of time to improve. Bloodborne tells the story of a city, the city of Yharnam, that's infected with a madness that turns all of its citizens into beasts and frenzies. This happened as a result of a set of gods known as the Old Ones kind of inflicting this on them. And you, as a hunter, are set out to slay enough great ones to break the cycle. Really, you're there to escape the status yourself. And depending on what you do throughout the game, you can either do that and escape, or the cycle can continue, or you can break the cycle, depending on how much you do. And it's actually really sad. I wasn't expecting to be sad, because I was told that story was a non-factor in these games. There's an NPC in the first area that you talk to through a window, and he talks about how he feels sick and he knows that he's going insane. And he's like, I hope I make it to the morning, because if I can make it to the morning, everything will be okay. But as you go through the game and reach certain milestones, the time of night changes to where you start in evening, and then you go to night, and then you go to this blood moon phase where everything is just colored in red. And when you make it to the blood moon phase, if you go back to the spot, the bro's window is shattered open, and instead there's an enemy sitting right outside. And if you defeat that enemy, you get a piece of inventory that you could have gotten from him if you talked to him earlier.
Oh,
so it's him. He went crazy. He didn't make it. And sadly, that's the case for most of the characters that you meet in the game. There's a set of characters that you can recruit to come to a cathedral for safety, and it doesn't matter. Like in the end, all of them either die or lose their minds, one way or another. And it was actually really sad because,
wait, which game is this in again?
This is in Bloodborne.
Bloodborne, yeah, okay.
You feel like you're doing something. You feel like you're making progress, but at the same time, like as you're progressing the night, you realize, oh, as the night goes on and grows more intense, that's causing damage to these characters, and it's like a necessary tragedy where there isn't another option. Like, yeah, it's not that you did anything wrong. You just realize, oh, like there was no way for me to save them. Yeah. And I've looked it up. I know that I didn't do anything wrong. I know that there's actually no way to save them. Like, I did everything I could, and it just was how it was meant to be.
Dang, dude.
So, poignant stories. Demon's Soul doesn't really have a story, though.
Really?
Not really.
Just beat up baddies.
Win. And try to save this kingdom from demons. Okay. That's pretty much it.
Okay. All right. Well, interesting. Yeah. Interesting. Is there an overworld? How do you transition from, each area to the next? How does that work? Mm-hmm.
So again, these are different between the two games. In Demon's Souls, there are 5 archstones, and each archstone acts as a level. But you transport to an archstone, a mini archstone, and then you go through the area, and then you fight a boss. And when you defeat the boss is replaced with an archstone, where then you're able to save and return to the hub world. And then within that, you can keep going through that for a couple levels. Each of the 5 archstones has 3 sections. Mm-hmm. But they're all separate. Like there's no way to connect or be in Archstone 1 and wander into Archstone 3. Like that just
finish that, come back.
That won't happen. Like so like you can go back to the hub world and then go to Archstone 3, but 3 and 1, like you're never going to get from one to the other. Yeah. Without stopping at an archstone, right? It doesn't happen organically. Right. Whereas in Bloodborne, it does a little bit. There are certain connections. You have your hub world, which is the Hunter's Dream, which is fantastic. And then the world itself is kind of all connected. Like you can start from the starting area, and like if you don't die and just avoid all your enemies, like you can go pretty much anywhere. With one exception. One exception you do have to be like teleported to, and it's kind of separate. But yeah, that one's a lot more interconnected. And as I've been playing Dark Souls, super connected. Like finding little shortcuts of like, oh, I was over here, but now all of a sudden I'm back over here, a place that I haven't been in like 5 hours, but like it's connected, and you realize you weren't like teleported. It's just that like you're like the ribbon or the squiggly like pasta noodles. It's just like a bunch of those like right next to each other. So you realize that you started on the bottom level and ended up on the top level of one over here. But to get to there, like it's all the same thing. Like there isn't like loading screens in between areas. There's only loading screens when you die. But like you can get to anywhere from anywhere. So does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah. That's a really good analogy. So, okay. But then like when you're going through an area for the first time, sometimes you're not going to be able to access certain spots, right? But then after beating other areas, you'll gain access. Okay. So is traversing through areas and backtracking, is that pretty seamless? Is that pretty good?
I think so, especially because I die a lot when playing these games. Like I get to know these areas very well, where I just like, in order for me to progress, I have to remember, okay, there's an enemy hiding around this corner. So if I'm not ready and I just walk past, like that enemy's going to stab me in the back and I'm going to die, and I'm going to have to do this all over again. So like in fact, there are times where my lovely wife Liv will be like, all right, like, do you want to play? And it'll be like 9:30 or something, and it'll be a long day. I'll be like, honestly, like my brain is too tired. Like I'm not going to be able to play well enough to make any progress. Yeah. So not tonight. So yeah, the overworlds are really fantastic, and it does, if there's a game where you had to die a lot and re-explore or go down the same path over and over again. They do a really good job of making that feel less tedious, just because it is interesting and well designed in that way.
Okay, that's very cool. Very cool. Okay, can you explain? You've touched on parts of this already, but what is the main gameplay loop, the progression system, how that works?
Yeah. So, you start in an area, and you got to go until you find a boss. So a lot of it is there isn't a lot of like hand holding in these earlier games. I don't know how that changes in later games like Elden Ring. We'll get there eventually. But it is very much just kind of like go and try to find it. And oftentimes, these areas are big enough that there have been times where areas I find the boss right away after like 5 minutes. And there's other times where it takes like legitimate hours to like finally get to the boss arena. But yeah, like that's really what the loop is you start somewhere, you go trying to find the big boss, you try to not die along the way. If you die, you reset and just keep going and going and going until you finally make enough progress. You find a boss, and then you're in for a really, really fun fight where I have not had a boss fight. Does that one count? No. Every single boss fight that I've had has been enjoyable. There have been ones that have been really hard. But the sense of satisfaction that comes from beating that boss, especially if it's a boss that's killed you, a good like 8 or 9 times, and then you get there and you just finally take that sucker out, like, oh my gosh, it's so good. And not in like I'm so glad that's over way, but more in like an empowering,
okay,
I did it. Like, yeah. I persevered. I made this happen. And it's just
because as a point of comparison, in the Jedi series of games, Ogdo Bogdo, when I beat that boss, it's not a, oh yes, I did it. It's a, I am so glad I'm done with this.
Ogdo Bogdo is definitely more frustrating than any of the bosses that I fought in the Souls game.
Okay, all right.
I'm not going to say that he's harder than all of them, because there are a couple Soul bosses that I've had that have just been terribly difficult.
Yeah.
But again, like it's less because, Ogdo's hitboxes are just insane and don't really make any sense, or the speed is like oddly inconsistent, or was to me. But like in Souls fights, like I really do most of the time, I don't feel like, okay, this is just unfair, or this is the developers being unreasonable. I'm like, immediately when I die, I'm like, okay, if I had done this differently, I would have survived. So like, I just totally feel like it's on me rather than on them. Now, Ogdo Bogdo, I hate that guy.
So the way you're getting stronger is, I think you said you collect souls. That's your main currency to Is that the only currency you require? Or are there other like specific parts of currency you need to upgrade certain pieces of equipment or whatever? Yeah,
so there are weapon materials in all of them that you get from certain enemies, or there's a lot of just like I don't know how to describe them. Like, each of these worlds is riddled with, unfortunately, like corpses that have passed away from one reason or another, and they have like little blue glowing lights, and if you go and pick them up, you like basically are like looting them for their materials and their supplies, and you can get them from there. You get them from certain enemies. At certain points, when you reach certain milestones, you can start to like buy like lower upgrades, because there's like different materials to upgrade from levels 1 to 3, and then it switches from like 4 to 6, and then 7 to 9, and then 10, right? Those are all different materials. But if you're at a point where your weapon should be around 6, like you can start to just buy, using souls, the materials to level them up from 1 to 3. So if you find a new weapon, you want to try it out and get it upgraded, it makes it a little bit more tangible to make that happen.
Okay.
So you have that for that. But when it comes to like leveling up in your stats yourself, souls are the only thing you can use. Although you do there are like clusters of those souls that you can get as well, and they won't go towards your souls total unless you're ready to use them. and they're just like a weightless item that sits in your inventory until you are.
Okay. Is this the same in Demon Souls?
It's the same across both of them.
Okay, cool. Nice. All right.
Yeah.
I always like it when games encourage you to try out new weapons and make it, less tedious to level up a weapon if you've reached a certain point in the game already and stuff, right? Because otherwise it's like, well, I'm not going to spend hours and hours grinding to get this one piece of equipment up to par.
And I think they do a really good job of that in a couple ways. Again, I think Bloodborne does it a little bit better because my starting weapon that I chose in Bloodborne was a threaded cane. I went with the cane. And I used it until the end of the game. Like that was my main weapon. Even as I got other weapons, I was just like, no, like I really like this. I've figured out what I can get away with, what I can't. But then I had secondary weapons because there are certain enemies that are weak to certain elements, and you can get, little stones to like modify it. So I had a secondary weapon for enemies that were really weak to fire, and I would make sure that I had that second weapon equipped with like fire stuff. But like as you go throughout the game, the weapons that you find, while they'll probably be weaker if your weapons are at like the max level that they can be, depending on the area that you're in, they're enough that like it doesn't feel like as much of a downgrade to start using them. So some of those later end weapons, if you just upgraded those to max level, like, they definitely would be the best. But just the way that you find them and when you do throughout your playthrough, I think really balances. And Demon Souls does the same thing where it kind of, although a little bit better, encourages you to kind of move on to the next weapon just because there's just more options. You definitely get more weapons in those games versus the others. But
okay. What would you say differentiates these games from one another? Or is it more like, you know what, Bloodborne came after, it just improved on everything Demon Souls did, and it's just a better game? Yeah,
there's two main things, especially with Bloodborne and Demon Souls both having the finite healing, which the Dark Souls and Elden Ring games don't. They use a different system called the Estus Flask, which, like I said, is like the stim packs from Jedi Survivor. So that would be one thing that differentiates them, but in this case they're the same. So the two is setting and combat pace. So Demon Souls is very much like a dark fantasy, kingdom, medieval. That's the vibe. And when it comes to combat pace, like, you are a knight in heavy armor, and so your attacks, you have a sword and shield. They try to ground it and be realistic to where you can't just be out there like a Jedi, flinging your lightsaber around like it's weightless. It takes movement to do that. Whereas in Bloodborne, the setting is like a cosmic Victorian England horror game, right? Where you've got like Cthulhu monsters and eldritch horror, Lovecraftian stuff. And so that to me was more interesting, which I think is part of the reason why I preferred Bloodborne so much, is like those visuals and kind of that aesthetic is more of what I like. But then combat pace in Bloodborne, they have something called the rally system, where you get hit, you'll see your health bar. So the health bar is red.
It like changes color, right?
It goes to orange. The amount that the enemy did will go orange. And then if you land hits on them, if your health bar is this, and after you get hit and it's like this portion of it's orange, like 30%. But then you go and land hits, you'll see that orange start to shrink where it goes boom, boom, boom. So that way you only lose that much health instead of this amount. So if after you get hit, you attack others, you recover some of the health that the enemy was going to be taking away from you. So it encourages a lot more of like, instead of just like dodging away and waiting for an opening, it's like, if you get hit, try to take advantage and do as much damage back so that the punishment for getting hit is lessened. So it just kind of leads to more aggressive gameplay overall.
That's cool.
It also doesn't give you a shield. Like in your left hand, you can either carry a different weapon, or most times you just carry a firearm. And so it's a lot more about like timing it so that as your enemy's hitting him, you hit him with a gun, it causes them to like stutter and parry. You go up and do what's called a visceral attack, which is like a super strong powered up one, and take a bunch of their health out. So it's just different, and it definitely encourages more of a like, don't let them come to you. Like, you have to be the force in this if you want to make it through, because the enemies I've noticed do a lot more damage in a hit. But because of that rally system, if you're playing it the way that the game kind of instructs you to, you'll end up taking less than you would in Demon Souls because you're recovering so much of it back by...
That's an interesting risk reward system. Yeah. And that whole system is non-existent in Demon Souls.
The rally system is not.
Okay. Well, very cool. I like that. That's a really good system, I think. I can't remember any of them off the top of my head, but I feel like I've played games that have similar incentives to keep being aggressive, and I think that makes the game just more interesting, right? And the way that you play it. What are the favorite aspects for you on each of the games?
In Bloodborne, the boss fights, man, are so insanely good. Because there are mini bosses where it's just like an NPC that like plays like you, right? It's like a hunter that's been corrupted. So it's like all these skills that you've been like trying to develop yourself, they're now being used against you, like Shadow Link in Ocarina of Time or anything like that. And so it's really rewarding to like overcome that. And there's just so much variety in how many enemies attack you that it just kept me engaged in so many ways. And yeah, like the boss fight satisfaction, I kind of mentioned it earlier. But like, I'm kind of worried for when my run through these Souls games end, because I don't think these are my favorite games, but when it comes to boss fights, I can't think of any other that like has that very specific sense of satisfaction that comes with like reaching that point in a game where you beat a boss, where it's not like, okay, now I get to experience something new, or I get to experience the next level. Like the reward in and of itself is that you tackled this and took this down. In Demon Souls, the graphics are stunning because I played the PS5 remake. It's gorgeous to look at. And I will say that in that one, the final boss had like a twist, a subversion on it that I didn't know was coming that completely blew me away. And I know I looked it up afterwards, and apparently a lot of people are really upset that this is how it went. But I was like, whoa, this is fit. Okay, so Demon Souls is like a 15-year-old game, and the remake's almost 6 years old. Are we okay if I just like explain that a little bit more?
I think we can talk about spoilers. Yeah, so, if you're worried about it, skip ahead like 10 minutes.
The final boss is a complete joke.
Oh.
The final boss, like, if you get hit by this guy, you just suck. Like, you're just bad. Like, you get to the end.
So it's easy.
Really easy. Like, you fight through this kingdom, right? These bosses killing you. You take out this demon that's been posing as the imposter of the king of the kingdom.
Yeah.
You go back to the hub world and you go down to this area, and the person in each of these games, there's a maiden who kind of like helps you take your souls and level up. Like, she's not really that important, but like, she's kind of like your, I don't know what you want to call it, companion. She doesn't, but she doesn't go with you. She's there to help you, right? And this maiden is like, all right, in order to keep this kingdom safe, we need to take this demon who's been the source of everything, and we need to put him to sleep. But in order to do that, you need to go into the true king, and you need to get rid of him so that I can put the demon to sleep. And you go in, and the old king is not this like imposing boss fight. He's like a shriveled man who's very clearly been possessed and is just weak. And you can tell like the energy's like all gone. As you've been wiping out these demons, you've been sapping their power. And so this king just like won't hit you. Or he does, he like tries to like roll around and do stuff, but it's just like so pitifully weak. And it just kind of adds this overbearing sense of dread of like what this king went through and what you had to do to save them, and like the fact that you've become such a force that like no one stands a chance against you now. And then it makes the final choice that you make at the end of the game, whether to take over and become like the new demon king or to cure the kingdom, like that much more impactful. Cause it's like, if you do take over, it's like, who's going to stop you?
Yeah.
Like you've torn through everything, and that final boss kind of emphasizes it.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people are disappointed because they play these games for those hard boss fights, and then when they were like, well, the final boss like wasn't even really a boss. But like for me, I don't know, like I was just like, wow. I didn't expect that. I really liked it, and I already got enough challenge from the rest of the game that I didn't feel like cheated or anything.
Right. That's an interesting twist.
So I really liked that, and I'm like, you know, as much as I loved Bloodborne's ending, I think that ending twist makes like the ending of Demon Souls maybe just a little bit better, because, and maybe it wouldn't be on repeat playthroughs, but on that first time I was like, whoa, I really liked it.
It's a cool way of storytelling, honestly.
Yeah.
You know,
and for a game that's like not concerned with that, the fact that they did decide to throw that in, I had a good time.
That's cool. Okay. What about your gripes? Maybe one major flaw of each.
Yes. This is a great question. In Demon Souls, I have an issue with the environments. Remember how I said in Bloodborne, every time I died, I was like, this is my fault?
Yeah.
I did not feel that way in Demon Souls. Demon Souls is really, really dark, and it's really hard to see everything. Bloodborne's also dark, but they at least make like where you're stepping and stuff visible. And you can also buy an item that allows you to like have like a little radiant of light around you just so you can see a little bit better. Demon Souls doesn't have that. And so there are a lot of times where, you know, I would die. I'm like, oh man, that's 10,000 souls. Now I got to get back so I can go get those 10,000 souls. At this point in the game, that's like 3 or 4 level upgrades. Like I got to get those back. And I'm going back following the same path I thought. And there's just like holes in the ground that there's no way for you to see coming or anything. And so you fall and die because of fall damage. So you lose those souls. And I'm like, this isn't because of me. This is because there's no light, and you just decided to put a hole in the ground, and it didn't seem like it was there before because this is the same path. Like, I don't know how I got through it the first time, but it just, and that happened multiple times in multiple levels where I'm like, this doesn't feel like I'm being punished because I did something wrong. I feel like this was a limitation of trying out a new style of game back when the game was first released. And the remake being very faithful and pretty much being a carbon copy without any changes, recreating that, I just felt like I was being punished for stuff that wasn't really my fault and seemed more inconsistent.
Yeah. And
in a game that's as punishing as these games are, like, why do you also need that?
You don't need
right?
Yeah.
If enemies can kill me in 2 hits, why do there just need to be random holes that I can fall in and die? So that's my main gripe with Demon Souls, is that happens a lot. In Bloodborne, complaints.
Or maybe you don't have many that are significant.
No, there's got to be some.
Anything that frustrated you, that halted your progress? Maybe the menu system.
Okay, no, yeah, there actually is one. I think the game doesn't do a great job of helping you understand some of the tools at your disposal. So in each of these games, there are certain items where you can like cover your blade in fire for a portion, or you can cover it in electricity. There are also stones that you can embed into the weapon that'll give that as like a passive, where it'll do like an extra 2%, but it'll be fire damage. And if an enemy's weak to fire, that's actually like an extra 10% to them. But the game doesn't tell you which enemies are weak to what. And it also doesn't tell you that bosses are pretty much going to resist any like poison attacks. Whereas like fire and lightning, most of the time they're going to be weak. Like I didn't look up any bosses in the long run. So after I finished the game, I went online and looked up, like ranked the difficulty of the bosses to see if other people had the same troubles I did, or if it was just a matter of play style or weapons. Yeah. And that's where I found out that like all these bosses are weak to this one thing. And it's like, there's no indication that would be the case. And the fact that these items are hard to find, expensive to replace, and one use only, like it doesn't really encourage you to experiment with that a lot of the time.
Yeah.
So then it ends up feeling like,
what's the point?
You put this system in there, but you actively discouraged me from using it outside of boss fights, but then encouraged me in boss fights without telling me, or vice versa. If you're talking about poison, where you should use poison all the time outside of a boss fight, but the second you get in, you want to definitely switch it out. It doesn't do a great job of explaining that or giving you any sort of idea on how to find that information.
Yeah.
Beyond people that have played so much and have just analyzed data files to find that out.
Is there no indication when you hit an enemy that it's like, oh, it's super effective, or, and
I mean, it's just their health bar. But if their health bar takes, if it's a boss fight, right, and it takes 50 hits,
but there's no discolorations or any aside from the sheer damage.
It's just the damage amount. And if you were to do normal and it says 150 damage, and then you put fire on it and then it's 250 damage, oh, you'd figure that out. But how are you supposed to figure that out in the middle of a fight,
right, when
you're worried about if I die, I have to go through this entire level again, or I'm going to lose all these souls? It doesn't do a great job of encouraging that type of experimentation in my mind. It does with the weapons, but all the other materials and stuff that you can add to try to give yourself a leg up, it doesn't. I went through the game without using most of them, and now realize that if I had used them, there are certain choke points that I could have progressed through a lot quicker.
I see.
But there's no way that I could have known that. So
interesting. Okay. Well, that gives me a pretty good idea of your thoughts on the game. Are there any other aspects that you want to talk about before I ask for the big what out of 10?
I do have a couple questions for you.
Okay.
So outside of me, just tell me a little bit about, whether they're members of our Discord or other people, who in your life has played Souls games, and if they tried to kind of get you on board and get you to try them out, what does that kind of look like for you?
I think the only people I know, and if I'm not remembering, please forgive me, but I know Zach has played Sekiro and loved it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm pretty sure Christian, my brother-in-law, has played Bloodborne when it first came out and really liked it. I haven't gotten much advertising of the games to try to get me to play. I think the most I've heard is probably from Zach when he was talking to me and saying, I beat Sekiro on this hard difficulty or whatever, and he's just got really, really good at it and found a lot of enjoyment from beating the game, which is really cool. And then he said after that he went and played, the Jedi Knight or Jedi Master difficulty of one of the Jedi games, and he just spanked everybody because he was so good already with that kind of game style that he's just oh man, I feel like I can beat anything now, Yeah. And it's cool to hear him talk about that, but I don't know, even after talking about all of this, I have zero desire to play them.
Yeah, so I want to talk about that. I expected that. When you say zero desire, does that mean that you're just neutral on it, or are there aspects of it that actively kind of dissuade you from trying one out? I
think what you said about, hey, it's 9:30, I can't really play this game right now. I think that is probably the main thing that dissuades me. But and then there's, I don't know, I don't play video games for difficulty. An adequate amount of difficulty is definitely needed to keep it interesting, but I'm not, for example, there was a part in Tales of Arise when I felt like there was a crazy difficulty spike, and I had to turn down difficulty to whatever it was that was below the normal one to get through this one boss fight. And then I think I eventually turned it back up. But I'm not the kind of person that's above doing that, right? Where it's if I'm getting frustrated, then playing this video game, it is defeating the purpose of playing a video game, which is to have fun. So I'm going to lower the difficulty so I can have a good time. And I'm not, so I guess a game that is kind of centered around getting good just doesn't appeal to me that much. But I understand, having played video games, that when you do get good, it feels good. I think one of the best indicators of that was my enjoyment of the Jedi series. Both Fallen Order and Survivor, I really like them. And when you fight certain enemy types for over and over and over, you can style on them, you get creative, or you just mop the floor with them. And it's so satisfying because the first few times that you fought them, it was really difficult, but now you know how they work, how you work. And that's really satisfying. So there's that. But I think above all else, they just don't appeal to me. And there are other games that are appealing to me more. So it's always going to be at the bottom end of my list of games that I could potentially play. So yeah, that's essentially what it boils down to.
So I guess to hark back to that a little bit, because we've talked extensively about the Jedi games and you liked both Fallen Order and Survivor a lot. I don't know. I don't think you gave either of them Game of the Year, but I think they were both like very much in the conversation for each of the years.
Yeah.
And won like quite a bit. So like if you were to like reskin that game, right? And it's not a Star Wars game anymore, but it is just some night. Like, do you think your enjoyment of that goes down like extensively just because we like Star Wars? Like how much do you think the Star Wars setting
that's a really
impacts your enjoyment of those games, right? Because like defeating Ogdo Bogdo was relieving more than satisfying. But there are other boss fights or other challenges in those games that we've talked about where you did enjoy it and felt that sense of satisfaction. You're just like, this is so
Ogdo Bogdo was the only one that was really a drag, honestly.
Well, and the Spawn of Ogdo, or Son of Ogdo, whatever his name is in the second one.
Even worse.
I hate that guy.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. That's a really good question. And I'm going to be completely honest. It would decrease my enjoyment if it was now Star Wars. And I am not ashamed to say it. Here's the thing. There's a reason why I love Super Smash Brothers and why I don't love most other platform fighters.
Sure.
I couldn't care less.
Absolutely.
Right? I love Super Smash Brothers. The initial draw was the Nintendo characters. If it wasn't that, I never would have really cared. So that presentation is definitely an important factor.
And I think that's completely fair because like think about Donkey Kong Bonanza, game that both of us want to play, but because it's not a Mario game, even though it was made by the people who made Mario Odyssey,
both of us probably would have played it by now if it was
a Mario game. I would have bought that day one. I would have pre-ordered it. It's the same thing. Literally nothing changes, but you make Mario the main character. I would have bought it. So like I totally get that. And I think it's completely okay to just say certain franchises, certain presentations, I like that word that you use, are just gonna make a product more enjoyable. And when I look at it, right, because I enjoyed Bloodborne so much, and I mentioned that the setting was one of the main reasons, because these games are very similar, like, I think it totally makes sense. Totally.
So, okay, what about then let me just turn the question around a little bit. What about the presentation of super dark, gloomy? What about that appealed to you initially? Yeah,
so for Bloodborne, I think it's that...
I guess you kind of already started with
Bloodborne, but I think it's the idea that there's a game out there that's not willing to like compromise on its design philosophies. I think was interesting enough. From Software games, especially after Elden Ring, have like this very large following, and I was like, well, it's worth a shot, right? We'll see. And you know, I bought Bloodborne for $10 on a gift card that I already has. Like, I didn't actually pay for Bloodborne. Like, that was basically someone's gift to me, and ended up really liking it, and then spent money to buy Demon Souls and Dark Souls, which is fine. Because those games have also been great, having a good time with them.
So if it was Elden Ring that was on a $10 sale, then you would have just bought that. So it was just kind of on a whim, right? It wasn't like
it just kind of was, and I think. Thinking about it, I think it's really, really good that I played Bloodborne first.
Demon Souls might have turned you away a bit.
Right, because of those environmental issues. And the fact that a lot of the difficulty that I ran into did not feel like it was my fault. I think that would have like turned me off. But like Bloodborne, having such a challenging experience but feeling completely responsible for all the difficulty I faced, has definitely made me where like, right, like I have the 3 Dark Souls. I got them on sale. I play through Dark Souls 1. I'll do 2 and 3 next. And like I'm already know, like, with how the timing is kind of lining up, I'm like, okay, it looks like Sekiro and Elden Ring are going to be like the first game that I play on my new PC build when I finally get that set up and ready to go. 'Cause like it's crazy that that game made me someone who's like, okay, anytime that From Software comes out with a game like this, like I'm going to want to play it. I'm going to want to just to see that sense of satisfaction come back out in a way that I haven't found or felt in any other game.
That's awesome, man. And that's one other thing that I love about video games and almost any kind of medium really, but the only reason why you are now invested in From Software games is because you just happened to buy a $10 on sale thing, with a $10 gift card on a whim. You absolutely fell in love with it, right? Now you're exploring the other older games. That's amazing. I think that is just awesome. And it's like the same way I came across Kingdom Hearts. I never sought it out. I never sought it out or anything, but my dad saw it at a used game store in Japan, and he's like, oh, what the heck? There's like Mickey Mouse, and he's got like sword and stuff, and he's with these like Final Fantasy characters. That looks awesome. So he just bought, Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2 used for cheap, and then bought them home, and he's like, hey, you want to play these? And then I started playing them, and it was like the greatest thing. I absolutely fell in love with it, like, because now, and if as an adult, if I were to see an ad for Kingdom Hearts 4 or whatever, I'd be like, okay, that's cool, a little funky looking, but all right, I would never get into it, right? So I guess this is just I just want to express my appreciation for the circumstances in which we are placed that help us to discover video games, to talk about them, spread our love for them, even though I will actually never say never, because I think if I were to pick up a From Software game, it'd probably be Elden Ring, because I've heard that Elden Ring, I've heard a lot of things about Elden Ring, and that game in particular, I've had a lot of people recommend to me, to telling me that I should play that game and that I would really enjoy it.
And I think when it comes to that, I think you'd be able to get the sense of satisfaction, but because of its open-ended nature, like any roadblocks, like it's not going into a menu and turning the difficulty down, but you just leave and go somewhere else, so then you come back later.
Right?
That it kind of enables you to have that freedom without compromising on the fact that eventually you are going to have to take this challenge down. You just might be better prepared for it later. Give me a couple months and I'll let you know if Elden Ring is one that you should check out.
Okay. All right, man. Well, okay. Rate both games out of 10.
Bloodborne, I'm going to give a 92 out of 100. Most of it's great, and it's not even like, I don't think there's anything in it, like I kind of mentioned, besides that fact we don't really tell you about elements, that's necessarily bad. I think there's just parts that are like perfection, and then other parts that are like, okay, this wasn't bad, but it was like kind of average, kind of like a 7 out of 10 experience for portions of it. So like overall average that out to like a 9.2, because so much of it is so good. Demon Souls, it's going to be lower than that for sure. I'm going to give it a 75. Because I think there's a lot of, and 75 for the first game in this type of genre. And let's be honest, like Demon Souls is the first time that we've really had there were challenging games before, right? Like absolutely. But like 3D games with this level of punishment and kind of old school design on when it comes to difficulty and placing it on the player. I think a 7.5 is fair. I think there's some clear issues, some clear areas that aren't as well designed as they could have been. but still some really imaginative vistas, some boss fights that are still super fun to think about. Some areas where I'm like, I kind of want to like, if I were to ever to create something, like I might steal this imagery or this type of vista and design. So there's still a lot to enjoy there. I do just think that one, Demon's Souls should not be your first From Software game, and frankly, like probably should not be one that you play until you know that some of those annoyances aren't going to be enough of a deterrent to get you to stop playing, because it is worth playing all the way through. But if I had known what was coming, I probably would have done the 3 Dark Souls before I played Demon's Souls. Okay. But that's all hindsight. So,
all right, man. Well, there you have it. If you played either of these games and want to, comment on anything that we said, please let us know. You know how to contact us, email, Discord, all that stuff in the description. Thank you so much to our Patreon supporters. This is going to be our last time shouting them out. Yeah. So here we go. We have our Down to Earth Cockatiels, Joshua, Tyler, and Matthew. And our Down to Earth Parakeets, Jay Maurer, Noah, and Qualthorn. Thank you so much for your support. It really, really means a lot. We never expected to have financial backing or support on this podcast when we first started it. So it's just humbling that we have, this many people in our little community who are willing to support us financially. And as we talked about at the beginning of the episode, we'll be changing the Patreon structure, but our gratitude for you will always remain. So thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.